We'll talk about your handout. Hopefully, like some of the print, the colors, you can see this, but like kombucha is just fermented sweet tea. That's all it is, right? It's been around for centuries, like the Chinese used to do this. So you start with starter tea and with your SCOBY. And so then, what is starter tea? And it's on here, y'all, so y'all don't have to like write notes. So it's just the starter tea is just strong fermented kombucha already. And then your SCOBY, it actually stands for symbiotic colony of yeast or bacteria and yeast, right? And so you have two steps with kombucha. You have first fermentation and second fermentation. And then if you turn on the inside, how to create your own SCOBY. So you can actually do this yourself. You don't have to spend any money. These are, the only thing I bought was this and these wonderful little temperature strips. Everything else we kind of already had at the house. Just a note, I think I have this somewhere else in my presentation. So I'm going to talk to you guys off of this handout, but then I have some notes that like I don't want to forget that I was doing my research. But there's lots of benefits of kombucha. So if you're not aware of them, I'm going to read this to you because I don't want to like get it wrong. But all of these things that I'm going to tell you right now are all backed by research, right? So you can help with blood sugar control. You can reduce your liver toxicity, especially caused by toxic chemicals. So when you buy products in the store, like your laundry detergent, your face cream, that all gives you a toxic load. And so kombucha is going to help your liver kind of do that naturally, because we get to a point as Americans or as humans where our body becomes inefficient in managing those toxins, and then you start having symptoms, right? Usually you have skin symptoms first, and then you start to have other symptoms that lead to sometimes inflammatory diseases. And a lot of times you go to your doctor and they're going to tell you you have some rare thing when it's toxic load, right? So anyway, I can talk about toxic load. The other things that kombucha are good for is it suppresses the bad bacteria in our bodies, right? And so like ideally, like we are walking bags of bacteria, which sounds terrible, but we are uniquely and wonderfully made. So we're wonderful, glorious bags of bacteria. But it will improve markers for heart disease, so both increasing or decreasing your bad LDL and then increasing your good cholesterol up to 31%, so you don't develop heart disease. Heart disease is the #1 killer of women, by the way, and it's an inflammatory disease similar to cancer, diabetes. I always forget that one. Anyway, it helps slow down the digestion of carbs, right? So like we all love our carbs. I love bread, I love cheese, I love sugar, right? And it slows down the digestion of those. So it's going to help you control your blood sugar better. And then the biggest one, I think, to me is in test tube studies, kombucha helped prevent the growth and spread of cancerous cells due to its high concentrations of T polyphenols and antioxidants. So they don't have a lot of how the polyphenols work for anti-cancer. Doesn't have a lot of, it's not well understood, but they thought that the polyphenols block the gene mutation and growth of cancer cells while promoting cancer cell death. And so if there's any medical professionals, that's apoptosis, which is natural cell death. And so kombucha is going to help create that process. So today is the first day of the rest of your life, right? Because you can start making a change. So a lot of tea drinkers develop less cancers. And then as a health and wellness professional, I've seen this help people like children with eczema, because children can ingest kombucha safely. We'll talk about some of the myths about kombucha like a little bit later. But one of the things that I found fascinating is it also helps with mental health, right? So we know that our gut health is tied to our mental health. And if y'all aren't aware, in my OB's office, we all start out as like cells, and then our body is a tube, right, of cells, and then it actually inverts itself and knits ourselves together, like the median of our body. And so your OB was really interested in your first ultrasound, whether or not your children or yourself, if they had ultrasounds, if you had cleft palate or other like health issues. But it is because our body forms that way. And so because we were all the same ball of cells, your brain cells and your intestinal cells are the same cells. Your DNA just told them how to go, right? And so that's why emotions have such a big part to do with our physical health, right? It's because of that. It's because that those intestinal wall cells are interpreting those emotions and causing bad health. So that's another like, you know, another little soapbox. But as a health and wellness advocate for the last 7 years, I've worked with hundreds of people to help them with their health, using what the Creator has given us, our natural world. And so this process is natural. I don't know who discovered it. I didn't read the research. You can Google search that. But I'm really excited to present this to you guys today because you can have a wonderful effect on your health, and it's really inexpensive to do it. And a lot of people will say, I don't like kombucha, it tastes too vinegary, it's too acidic. The great thing about brewing your own kombucha is you get to decide what it tastes like and what you like and what you don't like, right? And so, let's see. Yeah, so it's an easy process that we can do in our day-to-day life. So, creating your own SCOBY, we're gonna see, you take 2 cups of unflavored raw kombucha and you pour it into a glass jar. You cover it with a cloth, you secure it with a rubber band of some kind. You could even use a tie. I like the rubber band because it remains consistent. And then you wait 4 to 5 weeks until it grows to like half an inch. Now, it normally forms on the top. And if you see here, it says, do not move it, right? And so, at all, it says, without moving at all. And I took the risk and moved it today, and it floated right to the bottom. This one did, that one did, and so did my big one here. Now I'm hoping that they will cooperate and float back to the top. Because when they sit on the top, they eat up all of the sweet tea, and then they create the fermented tea. So we're gonna see how those go. If somebody takes these 2 home and they don't float back to the top, please let me know and I'll get you one that will. So that's a process, right? So like raise your hand if you are patient enough to wait 4 to 5 weeks to get started. Okay, I like that. I'm not patient. And so I started, and so when you start with a starter tea and a SCOBY, you're gonna be 10 times more successful, right? There's a company I get my SCOBYs from, Fermentaholics. I actually talked to them and they're gonna give you guys a discount. To get started, please don't buy their brew kits because you're gonna spend like $150 on stuff you don't need, or that you already have these things. So once you have your little baby SCOBY, you're going to make, you're going to make a sweet tea mixture. And then you're going to let it steep for a certain amount of time. You're going to pour it in a jar, and then you only have to wait 7 to 12 days. And then you're able to start. Now, when you start with a smaller one, you're going to have to brew a half batch. And so that's when anybody that takes a smaller batch, a 2-cup starter, you're going to be using this for the first time. Now, if you contact this company and you get theirs in 2 cups of tea, you can actually start with a full gallon. But you're going to be dealing in gallons, and then we'll talk about kind of how that falls out. It is much easier. It's much easier to start here than here, okay? For very many reasons. But I like that the Fermentaholics, you can get a SCOBY and starter tea pretty much from a bunch of different companies. They have the best price, and they're guaranteed that your first batch will make. And so for new people, that's really important because it leaves less up to chance. Okay, so we're going to move to first fermentation, which is on the first page, and we're actually going to make this for you guys. Make sure I didn't see any of my little notes for you guys. So one of the things when I got started, I went to a seminar on fermented foods. When I was a child, my mom, we never had any fermented foods because she doesn't like them. So I went to this free seminar, and she had a bunch of fermented foods, and then she had kombucha, right? And so I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. So I contacted her after class, and I'm like, yeah, I'd really like to start. I think this is amazing. We're gonna try. And so $8 for starter tea, and she gave me a website, and that was it. And I was like, great. Right? And so I was really like, if you are to $8 and website, that's great, right? I wanted community, and I wanted to build this thing. So that's what I love about the homesteading series, is that we can build this community. And so if that's the type of person, and you like homesteading, and you like sustainable living and natural things, like, you're in the right place, right? So please don't hesitate to reach out to me, ask questions. This is really informal, y'all. I'm not the person that's up here. So just do that. So on the table, we call these brewing vessels. It's a gallon jar. This is also a brewing vessel. They're just mason jars. You can pick these up anywhere. I would suggest thrifting most of your stuff if you can. We got like 500 jars or something for like $100 from somebody. So like we've got so many jars. We can and do other things too. So maybe we should do a canning. Have somebody talk about canning.
I'm hoping in March we might have canning.
Yeah, just before everything comes off the garden would be great. And so you're gonna make a tea, right? And so you want your tea to bloom because you want those polyphenols to come out. And so I brought these as an example. This is what you want to use, by the way, because if you look at this one, it's non-stick, right? It's the first adult purchase I made as like an adult, and I can't get rid of the dang thing. And I loved it when I used it, but now that I know better about the non-stick cookware and the stuff like that, so what you use matters, right? The only thing up here that's not glass or stainless steel is this, and I don't know, moms will recognize this as a reuse this stuff, y'all. It's a perfect funnel. And it's for the bottle. I use it when I bottle. When I bottle the stuff, I use it there. It's the only time I use it because usually it's not anything hot. Plastic is made out of petrochemicals, which is made out of oil, right? So like, why do I want to make this wonderful natural process and then pollute it with all this junk, right? So we live outside of Decatur towards Denton, and we have a well, and then I have reverse osmosis, so I have like filtered water, right? If you live in the city of Denton, please don't, or city of Decatur, don't use water out of the tap to make your kombucha, right? Because you want this to be a pure process. You don't want any heavy metals, you don't want any junk, extra chemicals, you just don't want that stuff, right? And so I would suggest some sort of filtered water of some kind. So let's see, we're gonna use this one.
Would you say like the filtered fridge water would be sufficient, or would you go even beyond that? I want to boil this water.
No, because even when you boil it, a lot of times like you're not going to get rid of like the heavy metals in it. And so depending on how old your fridge filter is, like check it, make sure it's there. Sometimes like in our fridge we thought it was there and it wasn't there. So we thought we were getting filtered water for a while and it was just right out of the wall. So if it's an older one, I would replace it. Maybe fridge and then some sort of second filter, maybe, you know. And it just depends on how clean and how, you know, what your level of green is, right? Like, because we want it to be as green as possible, like, and that's why with the well water and the RO, like, I don't worry about it. If I didn't have the RO and the well water, like, I would be doing something different, right? You know, I would, I don't know, I'd have some sort of fancy filter. I went to India when I was outside of college, and so I had this like water bottle that filtered everything out. Like, and it went on, it's like, it's not very big, so this would take forever. But that's what I would do something on that scale to ensure that the water there wasn't any junk in it, because I don't want to be putting that stuff in my body. You know,
there's nicer filters like these.
Something like fridge filter, Brita filter combined.
Yeah, it's something that has charcoal, something that's going to pull out everything. You know what I mean? And even like some of the, you know, some of your like microflora, like your bacteria and things like that, you're gonna want that to pull that out too. So I don't normally would do this on the stove. I don't have a stove, but my little friend here gets super hot, and so we're just going to, and you don't cook it for very long. So we're gonna let this boil, and then I'm gonna talk to you guys about some of the myths about kombucha, because there's a few. So, and you do 4 cups, and you'll see it says 4 cups, and I say medium saucepan because you definitely want, I apologize, it's just water. You will want to, another thing, like we use reusable paper towels. My brother found me this stuff at the state fair. I don't know, it's felt or something, I don't know, it's from Germany. We like it, it works really well, to reuse it. And anyway, so like all of those choices, once you kind of know better, you're gonna make a better choice because you want the best for yourself and for your family, right? And until someone tells you that there's something different, like you just do what you're used to doing. So if your mother cleaned with Clorox, you're gonna clean with Clorox. You know, you're not gonna realize some of these things. So like I said, thrift them when you can, and then just upgrade as you need to. And a lot of these things, like if you're already canning, you're already living a natural lifestyle, like you're already gonna be using these. But, let's see, that's going. And then I use an organic black tea. You can read online. I've given you guys some resources on the back sheet, like resource links. So a lot of the information on how I brew my kombucha comes from the You Brew Kombucha, and so that's that link that lady said, here's the $8 and go, you know. Oh. But the lady's very common sense, very logical about it. But the tea, I feel, you can read on different kombucha sites. Some people will use herbal teas. I haven't tried them. The consensus is they don't work as well. A lot of times you have to mix them with something else, because what happens is your SCOBY needs to eat the sugar to create alcohol to feed the yeast to then make it ferment, right? As this process happens, I use 3. You could use 2 tablespoons if you were really worried about your caffeine content. We committed to the Lord to stop drinking caffeine and alcohol a while ago. Well, before my daughter was born. So I don't worry about the caffeine, but on your page here in the middle says take note. The amount of caffeine that's going to be left, the SCOBY is going to eat about 1/3 of the caffeine that's there. So when we start out with 2 to 3 tablespoons, and I use 3 tablespoons, it's 84 milligrams of caffeine. Your average cup of coffee is 95. If you look into the research, caffeine in plants is actually an insect repellent, which I found fascinating. Anyway, it's going to eat 1/3 of that caffeine, and so some caffeine is good for you, they say. Most Americans consume way more than just the 95 milligrams, and I think that's where we get into caffeine is bad. But if you're concerned about it, you can look it up. You could use 2 tablespoons. I prefer 3, but you can see these little boogers. Trying to decide what I'm doing here. I try my best not to contaminate stuff. But you can see, like, they're small little pieces, but once we steep it, they're gonna open up, right? And they're gonna bloom or blossom as you may. And when they do that, they're gonna release all their good, like, polyphenols and all the vitamins and minerals and all the things that the plant grew into itself as it grew, right? You can use green tea. I've heard people use just straight green tea, and then I've heard people use all kinds of mixtures. If you want to do something different than black tea and you're concerned about that caffeine, look at, like, do a Google search, find somebody doing this and having success with it, and then do what they recommend. I like the black tea. I haven't found that when I drink my kombucha, do you have a question?
Is it best to have non-flavored? Like, could you use
Yes.
like a chai tea or something?
You would want non-flavored, like non-flavored, and like you don't want like I love Earl Grey, but they've put like lemon essential oil, grapefruit, something, and so that's gonna mess with your SCOBY, and so you really want unflavored, like just simple. I find organic, and there's also a link, and it's weird because it's roasted coffee, I think. Yes, fresh roasted coffee, but that's where I get this because it's organic, it's kosher, it's all the things, right? So as we're waiting for that to brew, the next myth that people have is about the sugar content. So if you're buying your kombucha at the store, you can be guaranteed that you're getting way more sugar than you should be, because they don't have to put that on their label, right? Now, when you follow these instructions, you're using 3/4 of a cup, which is, I'm gonna get this out because we're gonna do next. Okay, so you're gonna get 151 grams. That sounds like a lot, but the SCOBY again is gonna eat 1/3 of that. So you're gonna end up with 2 to 6 grams of sugar in every 8-ounce serving. Typically, when you start consuming kombucha, if it's your first time, I usually tell people like 2 to 4 ounces a day, and then like work up. Just listen to your body. I usually do anywhere between 8 to 12 ounces at breakfast, because we have a carb-heavy breakfast in my house. I can't get my mom out of the eggs and bacon and sausage and the things, and I'm not gonna fight that battle. So I will drink it with my breakfast so that it helps slow down that carb absorption, so it doesn't spike my blood sugar too much, right? And then I do another little bit before bed. And the reason why I do it before bed is you have all those good probiotics. Your sleep, this is like, as a health and wellness practitioner, if you're not getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night, like your body isn't able to go through the processes that it needs to. And so if you are facing either mild health problems or significant health problems, start with getting the right amount of sleep. and then see, and then do that for 30 days, right? And see how your symptoms change because you're getting better sleep. And it's crazy, it's super free, it's easy to do. What about y'all guys? So if I was boiling this on the stove, I would just bring it to a boil, and then I'm gonna let it sit. And this is the part I always forget. So then the problem is the longer it steeps, the more caffeine is released. So if you wanted to, I have no idea like how to measure caffeine and anything. I'm sure that there's a process, and if it involves math, I'm really in trouble. But always set your timer so that at 15 minutes, you can then start with the rest of your stuff. Now, let's see, what's next? I usually wait for it to sit for a minute. I don't like to add the sugar right away because I want to give the tea a chance at least 3 to 5 minutes. Black tea needs like 3 to 5 minutes to steep, like if I was just going to drink it myself. So I wait for it not to be super hot before I add the sugar, but I don't want to wait till, well, it's not going to not get hot. It stays hot for a long time. But wait to add the sugar because you want it to dissolve. One thing, a trick, I don't know, if you leave your spoon in your cup of tea, it will cool faster. Don't know. But I go with what everyone said. So yeah, so we're gonna let that sit for a minute and then we'll add the sugar. I was a little cranky because this is not organic sugar. And this is another thing that makes me cranky about the food industry. It has a logo on it that looks like the USD organic, but it says clean certified or something. I didn't even pay attention. I just saw what looked kind of like the logo. So just be careful, like be patient. It says it's clean. I don't know clean what that means. Compared to this company, everybody has a different standard, right? So if you can get organic sugar. I have read some kombucha sites where you can use other sweeteners because a lot of people are worried about their sugar and if you're diabetic and these different things. The SCOBY's eating that sugar, so you have such a small amount left. But I have read some websites where they have used other alternative sugars. I just don't because this works and I'm not worried about how much sugar it is. Note on first fermentation. Here in a second, we're going to combine the water and the tea in a vessel. These temperature guides are great because if your water is too hot, it will kill your SCOBY, and if the water is too cold, it will send it into dormancy, and either way, you're going to get mold and it won't work. So I'm going to show you in a second when we decide which one you're going to fill it, because I should have brought up their one. I forgot it. But it just has a cover, like it just has this deal. Let's see. Let's figure out some way to. I don't want to reach in here after I've touched all this stuff and touch my SCOBY and introduce some bacteria that shouldn't be in there. But this little booger is what does all the work. There it goes. This is the one that does all the work, right? And so you can see, I mean, it's somewhat delicate, but it's not, and it's slimy. I usually don't. Somebody's going to walk away tonight with a freebie. So this is the SCOBY that I started with. And then this new one grew over the top. Normally, as you brew them, I'm going to put it back in here before it flops out. As you brew them, it'll get thicker and thicker, right? And the stuff on the bottom will become less effective, so it won't work as good. This is a brand new SCOBY, so what we'll do is we want to make one for you guys. Let's see. Let's see. Did I start that? Oh, I started it there. I normally don't, y'all. And then I'm like, oh, how long's it been? And I'm like, oh, but it is what it is. And we're going to talk about this in a second, but when we go to, there's all kinds of good, yummy things on the bottom. You guys are looking at me like I'm crazy. But like these little stringy dudes, like I don't know if you can see this brown stuff, like that's all good, yummy stuff. Kind of like a vinegar in the mother in vinegar, it's the same. So don't be scared of those guys. And you want those guys when you go to do second fermentation. So I'm going to stir it up so when I pull out these 2 cups that it likes this. It'll be okay. That one's, I'm not sure what that one's going to do. but if you guys are close enough, you can see some of these boogers, like those little, I don't even know what to call them. I call them goobies, it's not the technical term. But, so, these will hold 2 cups, but if you get it full, you're gonna hate me trying to take it home, so I usually don't get them full. But then this little guy will sit on the top, and in 2 weeks, oops, come on. Sometimes they don't want to cooperate, but he'll work itself up to the top and seal it. Come on, bud. He'll work up there. And then we would just cover it. Oh, we're going to talk about covering soon later. So we want a breathable cloth because it does breathe and it bubbles, and if if it's real quiet in your house, you can hear it gurgle and burp and do all kinds of stuff. That's all totally normal. But what I normally do, when you go to cover it with your covering, you want to make sure that your thing is big enough. Come on. But fruit flies, if there's a wrinkle in the top of your deal here, the fruit flies will get in there. And so what I normally do, I like to use hair ties because eventually these rubber bands will pop and break, and it makes me cranky. So if you use a hair tie, they tend to hold up a little bit better, and they will fit. Even though they start out small, they will fit. They will stretch, and then they'll fit, and they'll still hold tight enough that they'll hold your stuff on here. But what I do is, a little more carefully, pull out all of the wrinkles so the fruit flies can't like weasel their way in there. You'll have less trouble with kombucha than you would like if you were making apple cider vinegar. And the larger your deal is over the top, the less they are to get in here. But these guys are just starters, and you guys are gonna work up to a gallon. So this little part isn't gonna be a thing. And when you leave tonight, you need to take these with it. It needs to breathe. So when you get home, like if you wanted to put the top on so it doesn't spill, you can do that. But you get a free mixer jar. So now we're here.
Is that just like any type of fabric? I know you try to be very careful with like chemicals or anything.
I do, and so this is like 100% like unbleached, like muslin cotton cloth. I mean, you could use a bandana, you could use an old t-shirt, you know, whatever. I did use a coffee filter for a while. I just felt like it wasn't breathing properly for some reason, and it should. I mean, theoretically it should. I used an unbleached, like I used the brown coffee filters. I didn't use the white ones. But yeah, so I added 3/4 cup of sugar.
Where do you get your batteries from? Just anywhere, or do you have a special place?
No, and I probably should have put that on there. Most of the stuff we just reused. When I got this little starter from the kombucha place, they actually had the cloths, and they were huge. They're huge. Like, it's ridiculous how big they are. They don't need to be that big. I cut them down. Like, it was bigger than this. I think it was maybe 8 or 10 inches. Like so yeah. But I would just, use the same idea of like, I really want the best fabric, or, if you have a t-shirt, you have stuff. Now, if you're using like Tide or Gain, or you're using some store-bought stuff, like I wouldn't be using that, But we use an all-natural laundry detergent, or if you make your own laundry detergent, like wash whatever it is. Most of these cloths, when I buy them from the retailer like this, like through Fermentaholics, or there's another place, Kombucha Camp. I think they're listed on the back of your brochure too. Nope. I will send you. I have a links that I sent to myself for tonight because I knew I wasn't going to talk about everything with you guys because there's just not enough time. But if anybody was interested in the next step and like, why did I use pineapple? Why did I use elderberry? Why did I, like I have links for all of that. So if you guys want to learn more of that, and I can just forward that email to you guys. And so somewhere down here, there's a place for you to leave your name and number, and like just make a little note like, hey, I would like your resource links, or I would like, and so, yeah. This little booger, and we still have like, like 6 minutes. And it's still like, I can feel the heat coming from it. And so normally my water is cold, it comes right out and it's super cold because it's cold right now. In the summer, I would probably have to either ice it down. The nice thing about our RO system is the guy was like, hey, do you want your ice maker in your fridge to have RO water? And I'm like, you sure? Does it cost more? And it didn't, so he just ran the thing, so it's on RO water too. And so then when I put the ice in there, I just have to make sure I still only have 8 cups, and I'm not trying to figure out like, oh, this, no. I just go ahead and put it, get it cold, and then typically if your temperature is between like 70 and 85, the water is 65 to 50. When you add this hot in there, it stabilizes itself and you can add your SCOBY and go. But if it's not, you have to wait till it gets to 70 to 85. Is it 70 to 85? 70 to 90. I don't like absolutes, so I play at like 85 with it. I won't put it in if it's 90, but that's just me. But if the temperature gauge needs to be 70 to 90, and so what's really difficult is if you don't put it high, if you put it too high, where your water is, it doesn't give you the right temperature, and so it's a little frustrating. But these guys, I'm going to tell you about this real quick. This has been fully fermented for 16 days, just because I didn't want to mess with it before I came here. Because I mean, I could have done this, but I thought I didn't want to travel with them and have them drop on y'all. But these guys, all you have to do is let them sit, and it will make, it's going to make a SCOBY and make kombucha for you, and then you would use that ½ gallon. So it's less. On that first page when it says create your own SCOBY, that's what you're going to be doing. And these guys are going to be fine in transport during that time. Oh, you know what? That makes life easier. It's just hard sometimes to see, like, so you guys are going to go home, and it's going to condense down. That's why you're going to use half. You're going to make a ½ gallon batch, and so my suggestion would be make it in a full jar. Like, you can still make it in this booger, right? But like, your SCOBY's going to not be the full size. And these guys are going to be babies, and then when they fall off, you can make some for your friends. But yeah, y'all are going to be able to go home at least tonight. And the fermentaholics, like I said, they're going to give you 10%. It's much easier when the fabric is a little bit bigger. But yeah, so we'll send these home with you guys. But what I'm trying to get to is I've got to put water in this vessel so that I can show you how the rest of it goes. So I apologize for the, what would it be called? The hiccup in my tummy. And don't forget your lids.
Is there a special code for the discount? And is
Yeah.
there a time limit?
There is, and it's for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And they named it after me, which I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, please, I'm not that person. But yeah, so it's Lalanya Kombucha, and it's until the he said for 2 weeks, and so until the 26th, I think, which is 2 weeks from today. But y'all, you can see, like, this has been pretty simple so far. Like, who has questions? Like, do y'all think this is complicated?
So I'm trying to understand, so it'll continue to make a SCOBY? Is that?
What will continue? I
So
want to
as
make sure
it
I answer.
continues to ferment, so the little one that was in there, that one was additionally created?
That was the first one, that was the original one. And so then when I put it in a bigger vessel, it grew to the size of the vessel,
Okay.
right? And so then from there, like, this will be the second batch on that, so it'll get thicker. Now, is it gonna get appreciably as thick as it is now? No. But because each different batch, it'll start to like, it'll stick together until it doesn't, and when it comes apart, right? And so then I can make 2. Just watch that, whichever one comes from the bottom, the oldest one, just watch that batch a little closer, because it could, these aren't very old, these are just a few weeks old, but once they start to get a few months old, even a few years old, I don't know, I don't think I ever looked up how long they'll last. Usually I forget about them and they die, and have to start over, so it's okay.
So you almost don't have to make a fresh batch, like from scratch, you could just continue to reuse.
You can, and they make like what they call a SCOBY hotel, where you can put them, and you're just feeding it, you know, and so you're not actually making kombucha, but you're feeding it to keep it alive. So if I put it in here and left it and forgot, I was telling her, so I have, one of the things you need to start doing, and I stole this from my daughter, she was really upset, but it's my like brew guide, and so like I write down when I did something, and so I was telling her, she's like, well, I travel a lot, like what if I forget? And I'm like, oh, that's a good question. Because on August 23rd, I made a bunch of second fermentation flavored kombucha, and then I made a new scope, like I did a new batch, and I did a new start, and that was in August 23rd. October 24th, when I went back, 2 months later, the kombucha was fine, the ferment was fine, which I was surprised it didn't explode, to be honest. And but the new SCOBY didn't have enough food, and so like it got moldy, right? So it's very forgiving. Yay. Okay. I know when we go to do this, it's not gonna be, these things are not gonna be cool enough.
So if it molds, then you just have to throw it away.
You throw everything away, yeah, and you have to kind of like, you have to start over, and you have to make sure you really clean your stuff, because those mold spores will, and that's why, and this is the other reason why you want to use glass, is it can't adhere to the glass, right? And so just soapy water. Don't use any special cleaners, don't use essential oils on it, because they're gonna leave a residue, and then your SCOBY is not gonna like that at all, like not at all. And so I just use a plain soap and cleaned it up, and like, I don't know, one of these was the one that had the mold in it, and it's clearly evident that it has mold, like it looks like mold. When the SCOBY is brewing though, and like forming, it looks a little weird, so it'll look really kind of cloudy and patchy, and eventually it kind of all comes together, and at one point there'll be like, almost like these little like tiny BB like pellets, like they're itty bitty, and it's just part of the process. I don't know if it's a yeast or bacteria, I don't know what it is. Anyway, it's just part of the process, so don't freak out when it does that. Now, if it gets, there's a thing called like an overgrowth of yeast, and it looks like a brain, like trippy, like, anyway, if it does that, like there's a remedy for that, but like you don't want that. But the longer you brew your starter tea, like the longer you brew your kombucha, so that's why I usually say between 14 to 16 days. I like it more acidic, right? But if you want it a little sweeter, a little nicer, you're gonna be pulling it at like 12, maybe 11. I wouldn't go any sooner than that. You can start tasting it in 5 and 7 days, right? And if you like the way it tastes, drink it, right? If you want it to be fizzy, then you can go to second fermentation. But I'm gonna show you guys that in just a second. Second fermentation is super easy. You don't have to worry about, it's very forgiving, so I'm not gonna have to worry about introducing more bacteria by having it be all goopy. But just be mindful of it. That's why I try to not cross-contaminate and stuff like that. Okay. And one of these is going home with me because I need 2 cups to make enough. So here in a second, we'll do that. But this is normally the color you'll get if you use black tea. If you use other colors tea, your kombucha is going to be a different color. So if you like kind of the golden brown color, then black tea is, you know, that's your friend. Let's see. And see, this is still just sitting here cooling. So like there's no rush. Like the kids can come in, you know, and distract you 400 times and do all the things. Like it's not gonna mess anything up, right? When you set this out to ferment, you want to keep it away from any of your fruit baskets that you have sitting on your counter or anything like that. You want to keep it away from the garbage, but you do want to keep it in kind of a darker area, and it needs airflow. So if you put it in like your pantry, you may not have enough airflow in there unless you plan ahead and you have like an air conditioning vent in there. Because it'll pull if anything goes yucky in your garbage, it's gonna mess up your kombucha. And then if you have a bowl of fruit on the counter where your kombucha is, if it goes moldy, it's gonna mess up your kombucha, and then your kombucha is gonna make it go way moldy real quick. Because you can still smell it. We were here earlier, and Adeline was like, "Oh, I smell it." So we were trying to figure out which one was which one we were smelling it from, and it was this new one. But it will make your fruit go bad faster. One way to keep your fruit from doing that, and this is something I tell everybody, mason jars are your friends. If you're not drinking your drinks and putting stuff in mason jars on a regular basis, like saving your leftovers, like get away from plastic. Plastic is the devil. If you're not using your mason jars or you're not reusing like your jelly jar, like the cute one that comes with the handle, like you guys are missing out. As your drink jars, as your Tupperware, like that's what you should be doing. Because you already paid for it, right? It's in the price of the jelly you paid for. And so yeah, reuse your bottles and labels. To get your labels off, just use like essential oil, like lemon will get it off. Lemongrass will get off the stuff that's really a pain. And then I saw somewhere a lady used a hair dryer on stuff and it came off. So that was interesting. I think it's still sticking us either way. Let's see. Well, let's see if this is too close, because that's what I need. Look at that. It's math. It works out, right? I'm not a math person, but I know it works. Okay. So look, we have a few that you guys get to take home, right? And if you didn't get one today, like I will call you in 7 to 14 days and we'll just do this process all over. I'll do it and I'll just meet you somewhere. But we'll taste it here in just a minute. I have some that I fermented already, second fermentation. We're gonna talk about that. It's, like I said, it's super easy. You can drink you can drink this now. Like you could totally drink this. So you don't need it to be carbonated. It's totally gonna give you all the wonderful benefits of kombucha as it is right now. If you like it fizzy or you want it to taste like cranberry pomegranate or whatever, you want it to be a little sweeter, most people do, right? So start out with doing a second fermentation and flavoring it however you'd like, and then give it a taste and see what you think, and maybe you like it better this way. Second fermentation is like 2 to 3 days, so you're not like committed to this huge process. Okay.
So the second fermentation is when you would add
Flavor or bubbles, effervescence, right? Second fermentation will make it bubbly, and if you add a fruit of some kind, then it will make it a flavor, it will make it sweeter. Okay. Okay, now, water. Okay. And then here, I think, what does it say? Somebody tell me, 8 cups, thank you. We're just gonna guess because my cup measuring thing is.
Do they have it on the side of the mason jar?
You know what, I bet they do.
Some do. Yeah.
This is just under 4. So I bet you I can take this one and make that one 4. And like I said, I'm terrible at math. Terrible at math. And then we have to trust that it's right. Right. So we're just gonna go like, yeah, sure. I would wash this normally, but I don't really care. Like it's not gonna damage it because it's not washed. But typically you don't want dust in it, you don't want it to sit around and all that kind of stuff. 2, 4, 8. Okay, so this is quite a bit of water, but it's sitting right there. So you don't have to have a fancy thing like this. I just thought it made it easier because I didn't trust that after the tea soaked in the water that there's still 4 cups there. I don't know. So I bought this little booger. It's the only thing I use it for. So it was completely. It was a want. Let's get that away from the computer. And so it doesn't all fit in here. And so at first I pour most of it. I don't think I got any in there, but we'll be safe. Because you don't want your tea leaves in there, because you don't want to drink it later, right?
Oh, so that just filters out the.
It just filters out the tea leaves. And so, like I said, you don't have to have some stupid fancy French press. Now, if you drink coffee or you like drinking tea in bulk, like totally buy one. This just is slower, right? And as I go, those 2 to 3 tablespoons have there's a lot in here. So you'll have to filter it a couple times, and normally what I do is I want to get as much water out of it as possible. So if you're using like a smaller deal, you're just going to have to do it more often. So it just kind of slows you down. I think I spent like $20 on this thing though. So like I price compared and all this stupid stuff. Now, doing it the second time, I would totally make sure that it held 4 cups. This one does not. But normally when you pour it, like, you guys can see that, right?
Yeah.
Like now they're not tiny, right? They've bloomed and opened. And again, if you don't want it to be as much caffeine, don't do it for 15 minutes. And this was longer than 15 minutes, but I've not ever gotten jittery or had, my daughter hasn't like spun up into oblivion like on her own. So I try to get as much as I can out of there and then press it. And I don't know, can you guys see what the temperature says on there? And see, like it's not all in there yet, so. And then like I really press on it to get it out of there because I want all that water. And the reason why I want it is because when I go to do second fermentation, like I want as many bottles of kombucha as possible, so I'm not having to like do this all the time. Okay, so a lot of times like it's gonna be warmer than if you put this, like start it at the bottom. And normally what I have to do is stand here and like hold it for a minute to make sure that it's not gonna be too hot, right? And it looks like, I don't know, we're still at 76, so I think we're still okay. And I go ahead and stir it, just, I don't know why, I like to stir it, I guess, before I add in my kombucha. Okay, so then, now that I have my sweet tea and my water, then I just pour my starter tea in there, and then I get this little booger. Here, bud.
So this is the tea and the previous kombucha.
Right, so I've taken, out of the batch I just had, the batch I made, and we're gonna do scobies with this, like, normally, some of those are gonna go in jars so I can show you second fermentation. But you see, like, this one fits in here, and he likes to float, right? Because he's a nice, good, healthy little scobie. And then I just cover it, and that's it, right? He's got some air bubbles. Trying to get those out of there. They'll work their way out. Like I said, it'll burp and make noise and do all kinds of stuff. If the top of this gets too dirty or too dusty, just wash it, and if you use Tide or Gain, just wash it with like soapy water and let it dry. But yeah, I'm kind of meticulous about making sure that there's no way for the fruit flies to get in there. This time of year, you don't have to really worry about it. But then you just let it sit for 7 to 12 days. I normally don't put these in a cupboard. I just let it sit on the counter in my kitchen. I have a light that stays on all the time because I have a 6-year-old that like gets up and does stuff. So I would put a rag around the outside of it. Don't tell them. But I wouldn't cover the top because it has to breathe. Right, so if you do have a lighted kitchen, or let's say you don't have a dark area to put it that has good airflow, you can cover this so it's dark, and then you see he's kind of floating down, but he'll float back up. We're gonna hope that this one does it too, because then you guys will have kombucha quicker. Okay, so second fermentation. We're gonna take one of these boogers. Okay, this one's super easy, y'all. So don't blink when you listen. So, did anybody recognize these jars? So this is a store-bought kombucha jar. This was like an apple cider vinegar drink. This was elderberry, right? What separates using these jars from others is the cap. They all have some sort of like silicone or rubberized little top in them. So like, let's say you could use a mason jar, I wouldn't. We do salad dressings, and we do the ones that come in the glass jars, and no sugar and no dairy. They don't have the plastic in them, so you can't use them because you can't get them tight enough because you want that bubble. It's going to bubble up, right?
So you have to have that in there?
You have to have some sort of topper. A lot of people will get the little fancy like beer bottles with the little flippy top cap. There's a name for them. I can't remember what they're called. Don't spend money on those things. I mean, honestly, if you're already buying stuff in glass and plastic, just reuse it. And like you can see, it takes the labels off. They're super cute. So if I wanted just bubbles, then I can just add, and I'm not going to fill this up all the way because I don't want you guys to. Anyway, You want to leave a little headspace, and the reason why I like these better, when I put these on, like, you want to leave these covered on the thing for about 2 to 3 days, and that's how long it's going to take to ferment and give you bubbles, kind of like beer and champagne, so you're bottle conditioning it in essence. These guys don't give because they're metal, so you'll come back if it's 4 or 5 days or 7, and the top of this will be like popped out because it's trying to let go of that pressure. So you have 2 choices. You can just put it in the fridge and like let it sit there for a while, so that it will, then you can open it and kind of like burp it. These are a little bit harder because there's nowhere for them to go. And so if you don't have like a really good strong bottle that already, you know, this had juice in it, it was pasteurized, if you don't have a strong bottle, it will explode. If you leave it too long, right? Typically it's 2 to 3 days. Now, if you wanted to flavor your kombucha, oh, it's a big mess. And that's why, like, when you do it, you don't want to put it in a cupboard because when it explodes, like, no. I put it on the counter. It's easy to clean. If it ends up on the floor, like, it's fine, right? So the stirring part, when you go to do your second fermentation, you want to stir it and get all that good, yummy stuff in there. All the little pieces that are floating and all the things, because that's all the least yeast and bacteria and stuff, and so you're going to want that to make this little booger go. Now, I'm not actually going to put the kombucha in here because I want somebody to go home with this. But if you were going to do flavoring, then you would just add, I typically do, a third of a cup is bigger. I should think math is not my friend. I usually do a third of a cup because I want to give more sugar because I want it to be sweet. So when you go to add, these are all organic. I think this one may not be. It's supposed to be something. Anyway, no sugar added. That's important to me. But I chose these, the cranberry pomegranate, because it's like Christmas and it would be fun for you guys to taste. We make our own cranberry juice, so we buy the organic cranberries and just boil them and make it. Each one of these has health benefits. The one I find fascinating is apple, because like most of us know that it's great in fiber, but it also helps, this is interesting to me. I want to read this to make sure I get it right for you guys. Is for mental health and brain function. So you have acetylcholine in your brain, which is like a nerve messenger, and at the proper levels it gives you optimal memory, but then the beta amyloid protein fragments that are associated with Alzheimer's and dementia, apple will drop those by 27%. And so Alzheimer's is now being called type 3 diabetes, right? I don't know if you've heard this. So again, it's a disease of inflammation, and so all of the juices I've chosen are inflammatory. They help with anti-inflammatory, and then of course your kombucha is anti-inflammatory anyway, right? So anytime we can, you know, every time we spike our sugar, our body gets inflamed. And so if we can cut that down, yeah. Let's see, pomegranate was really cool, especially if you have people that suffer with gastrointestinal problems like IBS, leaky bowel, that kind of thing. Pomegranate would be a really good one. These are all high in sugar, so I'm not adding any more sugar. So what I would do is I would put a third a cup of the juice in here, and then I would fill this, give it about, I think it says what, inch? Half an inch to an inch headspace, and then just put the top on it, and you can get one of those like silicone, this thing. I don't ever do this because I don't care, but you can like really tighten it on there. I can't ever get them on, so I just don't. But if you don't want it to explode or you want it to get really, really bubbly, just crank it down. I just don't, and I've never had a problem. So let me go get the ones out of the fridge, and then you guys can try some of this. Let's see, not that.
So you're doing a third cup of the kombucha?
Yeah, a third cup of your juice. And then you're filling the rest of it, and it's in the little paper.
Okay.
So your instructions,
Yeah.
the website, the Uber Kombucha website is real clunky and it's hard to use, and so I've like streamlined it here. So if you look at hers and you look at mine, like, I changed some of the words. I'm just kidding, y'all. I don't think it's like copyrighted, but anyway, I just made it a little bit easier. So you actually have your measurements with your steps as you go. Oh, thank you, honey. And so then you cap the bottles for second fermentation, and then you just let it sit for 2 to 3 days. And so you can see how this one's like, it's right. And so you put it in the fridge to stop the fermentation. And yeah, like you have to be real careful. This one, for some reason, doesn't want to cooperate. But this one's popped up a little bit, but when I opened it earlier, see, it like, and that, but it didn't overflow. A lot of times, I leave mine too long, so when I go to open them, they fizz anyway, and so I have to like put it over the sink, and then I lose all my yummy kombucha, so I get mad.
Yeah, how long is too long?
I don't know, until it explodes.
I had that happen
I'm
once.
serious.
So
like,
it exploded all over my ceiling.
yeah,
so,
I mean, you know, like, it's too long, right?
So how long is too long?
Like,
I didn't, that was too long apparently, but I
Right.
don't remember how long that was.
You know, well, the ones I did, and I think they were, what were they, watermelon and apple.
You wanna,
So the October
Yeah.
nonsense, and I forgot about, so I had watermelon, I did 7 bottles of watermelon and apple juice, and they did not explode in 2 months.
okay, that's good.
Right?
In the
But if
fridge.
it didn't have enough sugar,
Okay.
because it won't have anywhere to go. So I like the juices that have a little bit more sugar in them, and you don't want juices that like have like not sugar, like phenolphthalein or like no, or like what is it? You have like no sugar added stuff, and then they use phenoltronics or like don't do any of that stuff, right? Xylitol, which is a fine sweetener for certain things, but anyway, yeah, just get it organic. And then you guys, you can try this. And I have like, it's my own personal, like, which one did you try? And then which one did you like? Or which one was your favorite? And y'all are welcome. I have lots of these, and until those run out, like, we're good, right? But I think, let me make sure I have all my notes. I think I covered most of the basics. Okay, so why do we homebrew, right? First off, it's cheaper. Like, it's so much cheaper. I've had this bag, and I've been using it for I don't know how long. And it's a pretty good size bag. What is this? It was a pound. It was a pound, right? At 2 to 3 tablespoons, like that lasts forever. Do not buy a pound, because you're gonna be like, what do I do with all this food? Right? Because you're not gonna, if you make that much kombucha, like before I run out, we need to talk. I think we're thinking about like a farmer's market or something, right? Like where we do anyway. So if you're making that much homebrew, let me know. It's safer than most of the stuff you buy in the store because there's no added sugar. Like, I mean, obviously we're putting in the quarter cup, and you're adding the natural sugar like fructose, right? But a lot of the brands on the market, they add more sugar to them to make them more palatable, right? And sometimes they don't have to list how much they've added. They may change it, but then it's dicey, right? So if you're really watching sugar, and especially with children, and children that have focus issues or ADHD or ADD, like sugar's a big problem, right? Alcohol. So you can actually make hard kombucha. You can buy it, like you can go like up here to Trinity, they have hard kombucha. You can go to Okanita and they have kombucha that's like it's an ale. It's a different process and you have to ferment it longer. So the yeast eats the sugar and creates alcohol, and then the bacteria eats, the alcohol. So you do have some, but it's less than 0.5%. Anything, I think if it was 0.5% or higher, it's considered alcoholic beverage. One of the things I found fascinating is kombucha is considered halal, and so in Muslim law, halal is permissible because they can't have alcohol at all, and they're a very strict religion, and so kombucha does not, it has the least amount of alcohol, so it's considered permissible for them to drink it. So if you're pregnant, like I said, for children, I wouldn't worry about sugar, caffeine, or alcohol content at all. Let's see, a couple more things. You get the 10% coupon, like I said. It's Lanya, L-A-N-Y-A, and then kombucha, K-O-M-B-U-C-H-A. You get 10% off. Now, this is because I like to save money. If you don't want to wait the 4 to 5 weeks, buy a starter and a SCOBY, place that order. Get like some rubber bands and some, they make these little kits, spend like 20 or 30 bucks. They're gonna send you a coupon, $5 off your next 30. So like, pace how much you spend and save money. So don't, like if you need a gallon jar or if you need like some, I don't think they sell this widget, but if there's anything on their website that you think, don't buy it all at once. Spend a little money, get a coupon, spend a little more money, get another coupon, right? Save money. One of the things you can do as a new brewer, you can use pH strips. I bought these, I never use them. Some people swear by them, some people don't. Even if your pH is the right pH, which I think is like 6.5 or something, it still doesn't mean that it's going to be successful. Having a strong starter tea is what's going to make you successful. So, let's see, yeah. My information is on the back of the paper. And it's a joke. My mom, when I first started doing this, she thought I'd poison myself. And so I promise you're not gonna poison yourself. In like the 4 years I've been doing this, I haven't poisoned myself. And so you can contact me about whatever. If you want a SCOBY and like a starter, these two are unique, so we need to talk. This one is ready to go. And then these guys, and you know what, why don't we just save this and you guys can taste raw kombucha. But if you do take these two, we need it. Because if it doesn't take, I'll get you something else. And then we can try stuff. And thank you guys. I appreciate it.